Hello everyone. In this video, we will be discussing the major ideas of political economy, which is existing since very long time, and it is documented in many economics and political science textbooks. And in the second section, we will be discussing some of the major ideas of Adam Smith, who is known as the father of economics. So, the first point is, what is political economy? So let's look at this term political economy. So political economy is the relationship between two words, that is politics and economics. So it is the amalgamation of two words, right? One is politics and one is economics. It is important to note here is that before industrial revolution there did not exist two independent disciplines such as political science and economics. Before industrial revolution, it was all a single entity, which is known as political economy. And only after the industrial revolution, we have disciplines like political science and economics. So the idea of political economy at those times were different, and the idea of politics, power, and economics were all combined in the sphere of political economy, right? So the question is, what does political economy study? So the first thing is they study domestic systems and they also study the international systems. And within these systems, they study the economic systems, the political systems, and the transformations of power and money, how money and power is being circulated within the economy and within the country. So those things are studied by the thinkers. Again, when we talk about international political economy, we study the political and economic dynamics, right? How these economic systems are affecting one country is affecting another and another affecting the other, and how the economy is flowing and how the power and politics is changing, right? So those kind of things are studied here. And also one thing to note here is that political economy is a comparative study. So we are always comparing and always we are always forming opinions by looking at the differences between two ideas or two thinkers. So now let's look at some of the major disciplines of political economy. So the political economies from a very long time they were divided into three disciplines. First is accountants. So there were some thinkers who were discussing the accountability of the system or the economic system, so how accounting should be done in all those ways. Secondly, there were some economists and who were discussing the efficiency criteria or the efficacy of economic systems, that is how economy should be run to maximize the utility, right? The idea of efficiency is basically utilizing all those resources in a very just way and making money out of it, right? So how economy should run. So those strategies were given by economists. Then there were some political economists who were discussing all of these things together, like how economics should is studied in conjunction with politics and how power is affecting all of these things. So they were looking at different perspectives and justifying their viewpoints in different contexts. Now let's look at some of the major stages of political economy. Now first one that we are looking here is called economic nationalism or economic nationalist or mercantilist theories. So let's try to use mercantilist word here. So mercantilist theories are basically there were some theorists at those times who were thinking that state should intervene or state should play the major role in the economy. So they were thinking that the government has the sole authority to make the decisions for the economy, and they were of the view that the markets are always zero sum. That is, They were thinking all of the economy in terms of exports and imports. We will discuss the term zero sum when we are uh, talking about game theory in preceding sections. And the major idea of mercantilist theorists were the protection of national wealth by barriers. So they were of the view that trade is the only strategic tool that will enhance a state's power in the world economy. And they were always looking at expanding their trade, and they were of the view that they can a country can become wealthy when it's exporting more, right? So these are the major ideas of mercantilist theories. Now let's look at second stage or second way of thinking, that is liberalism. So there were some liberal theorists like Adam Smith and John Locke, and they were of the view that the individual and self-interest is at the center of all of the analysis, right? So they were thinking that the individual should govern, or rather the market should govern, and the state should not intervene in the working of the economy. They were talking in terms of markets are creating a kind of positive sum, right? So they were always thinking about international cooperation, gains from trade, and all of those things. Like they were also thinking about global economic integration, right? And all of those international regimes, that they were of the view that the there is for instance, when we talk about Adam Smith, so Adam Smith was of the view that there is an invisible force, right? There is an invisible hand which is working in the economy, which is creating a positive sum in the market, and government intervention will discourage the market forces, or rather disrupt the equilibrium. So they were of the view that individual and self-interested persons or entrepreneurs bring about a greater change in the economy. Okay, this is the third theory, that is the Marxist theories. So Marxist theories are very important for any for understanding the political economy, right? So Marxist theories start from the Marxist literatures. So for instance, when we read Das Kapital, or when we read the Communist Manifesto, or all of those kinds of Marxist literature by Karl Marx or Frederick Engels or all of the other theorists which came after him, so they were all of the view that the class conflict or the class is the center of all of this political economy, and it should be studied more significantly. They were of the view that there is a bourgeois class and there is a proletariat. So the this class conflict is more important, and there is an exploitation which is going on, and the bourgeois is controlling the means of production and the workers are being exploited. So it is a kind of a capitalism, and it is leading to an uneven development in the economy. And the ideas of Marxist theories are also applied in many economic theories, such as core and periphery theories, or the theories of uh, uneven development. Like when we look at the economy of Latin America or Africa or some of the sections of Asia, we see that there are some core and there are some peripheries. Like the colonialists are appropriating all the resources from the periphery, and they're exploiting the periphery. So there are some theorists who were talking about this. We will be discussing this in when we talk about development economics. So Marxist theory is very important for that, and we will discuss it in some other class. So this is a comparison of all of those major political economic theories, and this slide will be shared with you shortly. So you can find this uh, figure there. We can find this table how differences can be made, and this is very important to understand. Okay, now let's understand Adam Smith. So the major ideas of Adam Smith can be divided in the following sections, right? So first idea is he had some major ideas in his books such as Wealth of Nations and Moral Sentiments. So those books are very important if you want to understand his ideas, and there are really nice and very liberal perspectives which you can find there. So anyway, let's look at some of the major ideas. So the major ideas that emerge from his book Wealth of Nations are called, first is laissez-faire. So this French term laissez-faire means leave alone. That means the market should leave alone, or the market should be run freely and the government should leave alone. Secondly, there is a term called free market economy. Thirdly, he discusses capitalism. He discusses self-interest. He also discusses the microeconomic theories and such and so on. Many ideas are discussed by him, but we will look at some of the major ideas. So now let's look at the historical context, right? So we know that the Industrial Revolution happened between 1760 to 1840 in United Kingdom, right? Britain. So in that place, that happened, and the Industrial Revolution brought about major changes around the world. So it shaped the modern world, and the technologies and the education system grew, and many specialization and disciplines grew out of it, and it helped create a more secular kind of a European civilization. Okay. We already discussed this mercantilism theory, right? So how the mercantilism theory transformed from those ideas, though under those systems the idea of hoarding of gold and silver was the primary goal, right? Though they were of the view that when we are hoarding this gold and silver and we are trading and we are importing like the unfinished goods, we are having with the kind of economy is growing, the wealth of nation can be created, right? And they were of the view that export of finished goods was more desirable and import of these unfinished goods or the gold and silver was less desirable. So those ideas were changing after the Industrial Revolution. And we also see that after the Industrial Revolution, lot of changes happened, such as slavery became illegal, and there were some economic changes in terms of technological advances. So those kind of things happened. And when we look at the ideas of Adam Smith, we infer from his ideas that uh, he was an apostle of capitalism. That is, he summed up and explained the political system or economic system in such a way that made free market or market forces the major goal of any economy. So he was of the view that the importance of free market lies in the ensuring the highest quality of goods at lower prices. So those kind of things he was talking about, and he was of a capitalist utilitarian era, right? So his ideas were not completely utilitarian, such as the Bentham's idea, but his ideas were utilitarian in the sense of a capitalist way. So he was called a capitalist utilitarian, and he was also called a libertarian. And his ideas were individualistic, that is, self interest was at the core of any economy. His ideas was like that. Okay, Smith had many ideas which are included in his books, but let's look at some of the major ideas, right? So, first, the idea of government. So, Adam Smith was a very strict it was strict in the favor of market forces. He was completely opposed or he was asking for a reduction in the role of government intervention. And he was talking that the government should not intervene in the free working of the economy. The idea that why government should not intervene can be understood from his view that in the production system or in the consumption system, the government uh, intervention creates many inefficiencies in the economy, and there are many waste which occurs through poor taxation measures, and there is a misdirection of resources, and also the over regulation of the economy is affects the overall welfare of the economy in a negative way. So those were his ideas, and he was of the view of political liberty and economic laissez-faire. One thing to note here is that his ideas and Marxian ideas hold similar view regarding the economic structure and the political structure. That is how they were of the view that the economic structure of the society will precede the political one. That is, the political structure will form after looking at the economic structures. Those were the one similarity which exists between Marxist idea and Smith's idea. And they were of the view that, or rather, Smith was of the view that commerce and manufactures gradually introduced order and good government, right? So these were his idea, and he was of the view that government's role should be to provide a stable social framework, in which the uniform, constant, and uninterrupted effort of every man is utilized to better his condition. So this realization could be done. So for that, government intervention is required, or else in other cases, in the free market economy, government intervention is not required. And another very important idea of Adam Smith is of self-interest. That is, Adam Smith says that individuals are largely, although not completely, motivated by self-interest. That is, the betterment of one person, or the self-interested person's motivation for doing one thing results in the betterment of the society. So he was using some of the examples, but they were of very complicated nature, so I am leaving those out, and I'll just tell you the major idea that he says that there is an invisible hand. So that is his famous analogy that there is an invisible hand which creates greater good. And his idea is that people, if left alone, will produce not only their own greatest good, but the good of all. This is because of the invisible hand, or some of the market forces which acts in a way that creates a greater good in in the economy, right? So he was of a view that free economic system should exist, and led by the invisible hand, it will promote a good promote the welfare of the economy. Okay, and he says that free markets allow individuals in an economy to improve their conditions. That is, the collective improvement by individuals will equal the national improvement. So he's summing up the collective improvement, like the improvement of all of the individuals, and he's making it equal to some kind of a national improvement. So this he emphasized this idea in his book called Wealth of Nations. Again, a very important idea of Smith is of specialization and division of labor. So Smith says that the greatest advantage of free domestic and foreign markets is that individuals are able to specialize, and through the specialization of abilities or certain doing certain functions, the wealth of persons and nations grow. So he says that division of labor is at the center of the economic growth. He says that when we are able to divide certain job into smaller segments, then each persons can focus on that smaller segment and they can create a greater good. So division of labor is very important for specialization to occur. And he was focusing on division of labor by looking at the economies of scale, how economies of scale can occur because of division of labor. And he says that when the division of labor is not there, there will be diseconomies or complexities which will create lesser good in the economy. So division of labor should exist, or rather it exists properly in a free market economy, right? So where that is where it is more effective. So in a closed market or monopoly practices, there can be inefficiencies. So those were the ideas of Adam Smith. Another idea of Adam Smith is that he says that labor is the real measure of the exchangeable value of all commodities. So he's talking about labor, that labor is creating all of the value of any commodities, right? So there are major disagreements about labor, land, and the resources in the whole of the political economy, but Smith is following the idea of John Locke. So John Locke is a major philosopher, a liberal philosopher, and he was of the view of labor that is creating the major value, or the real measure of all the exchangeable value of all commodities, right? So Smith considers that the wages of labor varies depending on five components. So he says that the wages can differ because of five reasons. First is the agreeableness of the employment. Second is the difficulty in learning the job. Third is the constancy of the employment. Fourth is the amount of trust required by the job and the probability of success in it. So there are 5 points he raises here for which the wages of labor can differ. Now, when we talk about production or free trade, Adam Smith's ideas are very important. So Adam Smith talks about free trade, and he said that when we are restricting individuals' abilities to free trade, the economy does not grow. That's why he's saying that the laws and the customs should not restrict economic behavior, right? Economic activities in the market. So he's saying that if trade between two nations is curtailed, then the specialization will not occur. And this is a very important point, that Smith's idea of international trade is based on specialization of goods, right? Finally, when we look at Smith's idea of government, is that Smith was not completely opposed to government. That is a very wrong understanding. Smith was opposed to overregulation and government intervention in the market forces. However, Smith assigned three roles for government. The first is national defense. That is, the government should maintain the national defense and they should invest in the military forces, and they should try to restrict any kind of internal or external war, right? So those were the first function that government should do. Secondly, the government should interfere in the administration of an impartial system of justice. That is, the justice system should be impartial, and for that, the government should intervene. Thirdly, The government should intervene in certain public works and institutions which are beneficial to society. So he is saying that certain political works like infrastructure development and certain institutions such as education centers are those which should be created or which should be facilitated by the government for the betterment of society. However, his ideas on government's role on market forces are very strict that government should not interfere since there is an invisible hand which is working to create equilibrium in the market and which is creating a positive sum in the economy. Again, Smith talks about four principles on taxation. So his ideas of taxation are as follows. First, taxation should be proportionate to income. That is, as income is increasing, the tax should be increased. Secondly, its amount should be certain for the payer, right? So the taxpayer should be able to know how much he's paying, and it should be certain and not arbitrary. Thirdly, its payment should be at a time when it is convenient for the payer. So convenience should be there, right? So the payment of tax should be levied or the payment of tax should be taken out from the taxpayer at a convenient time. Fourthly, it should be of a nature that is uncostly to administrate, right? So we see that sometimes taxation is causing many administrative costs to the economy or the government. So the government should look at this principle and also try to uh, administer some kind of taxation system which is uncostly, you know. And that's it for today's class. We'll be discussing certain other principles and other important economic theories in the future classes. Thank you. My name is Sujit.